oh boy, do I have a special one to bring today. So I realized after a little while now, there's a rifle I've had in my collection that I've had for ages. I don't even remember when I got it, but I've never featured it on the channel, so I figured I'd go ahead and get it out. So the rifle we're going to be talking about is this here. This is a PTR 91, and this should look instantly familiar to anyone who's really familiar with any kind of Cold War era, 1950s through 08, old school battle rifles, right? I've got my own, nice furniture on here, but we'll get into that a little bit. So, yeah, I've had this rifle for gosh knows how long now, and I've never featured it on the channel, so I figured, this is absolutely one of my favorite things to shoot. So I figured, man, a video was long overdue. So yeah, this is a PTR made 91, and it says right there, PTR Industries. Cool. Yeah, so basically what this is it's an American version of the G3 rifle, which is, of course, very famous, very well known from conflicts all over the world, all throughout history, largely in comparison with like your FN FALs and to a lesser extent the M14, right? So classic 308 battle rifle design. So the history of that, gosh, there's so many videos on the particular G3 itself for the design of this. So I won't get too much into that. However, there is a really good book that I like. It's this right here, the G3 Battle Rifle, written by Leroy Thompson. And this is a whole series of books that look roughly similar to this called Weapon, I believe. And you can get these on Amazon for not too much money. But the writing and pictures and history and everything else from these series of books has always been really excellent, regardless of the author. So definitely recommend, if you're interested in these rifles as much as I am, definitely pick this up. Really, really good history in there. So that'll tell you everything you need to know from the very, very beginning. Back when the Mauser engineers in World War II were escaping on a train with all their machinery and tech and everything, and they're trying to hide from Allied bombardment. And they got found by the Allies, and well, the rest is history, right? So, of course, this is derived from the H&K G3 rifle and the civilian versions as well, the HK 91s. This is about as close as you're going to get to it. Although I will say, I think over the years, the exact pattern of PTRs have kind of changed a little bit. PTR has a interesting history, shall we say, when it comes to what they put on their rifles and where they get their parts and things like that. So a lot of the more modern PTR 91s that I've seen, and I'm talking like basically COVID times, post-COVID times, I've seen a lot of the new ones don't have a 3-position lower right here. They have like a 2-position one or whatever else they can scrounge up. They're not very consistent, as I've seen. But this is a genuine, 3-position lower here. It's got SEF properly marked on both sides. And what I really like too is PTR does the paddle on the magazine release here. This is so difficult to get into frame because it also weighs a bit. But this little paddle right here, yep, that is not present on your, I guess I would say, standard issue G3 or HK91s. They do not have that paddle. So instead, they rely exclusively on the button mag release, which is right there. I much prefer the paddle release because I really honestly can't remember a time where I've ever used the button release to get the mag out. It doesn't quite flow as well as having your thumb here, grabbing the mag like this and just pulling it right out. So, but yeah, I'm fortunate to have one of the old school original SEF 3-position lowers. No, it is not full auto. Although, man, I wish it was some days. The original furniture that came with the gun, when I ordered it, has the thin handguard here and the regular buttstock that you see here. These two pieces are pretty much the most common things that you'll see on these kinds of rifles, and they'll come in all different colors and shades of color too. I believe out there is a guide that tells you what colors are meant for what, because this is like a bit of a darker green than the like olive drab green, so you can kind of see the difference here in the light. So this color is obviously different from this. and I forget which one is supposed to be which. One's supposed to be like alpine, I think, and one's supposed to be jungle or something like that. I don't remember the exact documentation on it, but there is slight differences for the colors that the furniture comes in and what biome they were intended to be in. So, but what I have is the wide handguard here, which is infinitely better than the thin one. I can just tell you that right now. And the clubfoot machine gun style stock that you'll see on like I think it's the HK21s and 23s have this kind of little ledge here for your hand, so when you're sitting prone doing your thing, you can hold your other hand right there and have more stability for a prone machine gunnering time. So I put this stock on here because I much more prefer the length of pull for myself, and also because it's a lot more comfy to shoot. Having this nice big rubber butt pad here versus your thin, just plain plastic here on the end of this one. So that makes a huge difference in terms of comfortability for shooting. The wide handguard is infinitely better because this thin handguard here, it is thin and it gets hot very, very quickly. Despite having a heat shield right there that looks roughly similar to the ones that you'd see in like your AR-15 handguards, that doesn't really do a whole lot when you start putting rounds down with this. The thin handguard absolutely does not hold up very well. I mean, it's thin. So this wide one definitely also has a bit more of surface and more flat surface here on the bottom that you can see. That really makes it a whole lot better for grasping it, and also for putting it over barriers. It gives a much more surface to rest it on things and rest it in a somewhat flatter position than having your round thin handguard here, which has basically no flats whatsoever. It's just kind of round all over, so it's kind of meh. Also, I just think aesthetically this looks way better than the thin and original furniture. Now, I do wish they were matching colors. I do wish this green was the same green as the stock here, and of course the grip as well. But these are surplus parts, so it's kind of with the surplus market for genuine like furniture for these things. They're a little hard to come by, and they can be very expensive depending on where you get them. So for now, I'll take what I can get. So now that's not saying, of course, I can't get like a reproduction wide handguard here and just spray paint it myself and call it a day, you know, and get a repro clubfoot stock like this and paint it myself. But I don't know, there's just something nice about having, I don't know, surplus parts. It just feels a little more complete to me. As far as other features, so the wide handguard can also accommodate the bipods that are supposed to come with these, and that's what this big slot up here in the barrel is. God, this thing is unwieldy. So this slot right here is for the bipod, and the handguard as well has the cutouts here on the sides that you can see right here and right there. Those are for the bipod legs. I do need to get one of these days. I do not have one right now. These can also take the G3 style bayonets, provided that you replace the cap that's here on the front of the front sight base. So the caps that are supposed to be able to take the bayonets have a small slot cut in them. So at some point I do need to order like an original surplus cap, gas cap, I guess, here. It's not even a gas cap, but you know, this cap here, so I can mount a proper original G3 bayonet. I will say one problem with the wide handguard is this little sling point here, this little sling clip right there. That thing is an absolute pain in my ass, as with a lot of the, shall we say, ergonomic issues with this gun. So you'll see the cocking tube, of course, is right here on this side there. And what I find happens is when I'm trying to be fast with this, I'm trying to bring back that charging handle, my hand ends up hitting this clip here, and I have torn, so many times I have torn so much skin. I have lost chunks of meat out of my hand from trying to rack this too fast to lock it open, and of course doing the iconic slap. Yeah, this is very, very poorly positioned, and I do not like that at all. I've been tempted to almost just pry it out of the handguard itself, or cover it with like electrical tape or something to make it so it's not so invasive. But yeah, big downside of that. Ergonomically speaking as well, this gun, you will need to learn how to use it. It is not modern in really any way, but if you have experience with roller delayed guns like this, roller locked guns like this, you'll be pretty used to it. So if you operate MP5s, same thing, right? No last round bolt hold open, of course. That is a classic feature of these guns, which I don't think is such a big deal, to be honest, because like I mentioned in my other video, where knowing when your gun is empty, a 20 round magazine like this with 20 rounds of .308 feels a lot heavier than an empty aluminum mag like this. So when you are running empty or running low, with this rifle particularly, I can definitely feel the difference when I'm getting low. So that already is enough of an indicator to me to let me know that I'm getting close to the end of my magazine, if not already at the end of it. So, but yeah, it does require quite a bit of strength to pull back on this charging handle and pull it all the way back and rack it open. Especially if the rifle is decocked, you have to fight not only the recoil spring, but you got to fight the hammer spring and everything else to get all that mass back, and then get it open to really operate this effectively and quickly. Basically, don't be gentle with it. Kind of like an AK in that sense. So we do a little bit of slack there, of course. Also ergonomically as well, the safety on this is not the most ergonomic. I don't really have too many issues with it, frankly, myself, but it's only on one side. Now, you can get aftermarket parts. There's tons of aftermarket parts of these things. That you can have this to be ambidextrous. You can get different shapes of levers and things. I prefer to just leave it alone as it is, because honestly, if I'm shooting right-handed, my thumb can reach it, decently well. I don't have too much of a problem. Putting it back on safe is a bit of a two-handed operation, just due to the angle of it. And then, of course, if I'm running it left-handed, it's already right there. So to me, it's not much deal at all. In fact, it might even be better left-handed than right-handed. But that's just how it works for me. Even running this left-handed is a challenge, definitely. And even Ian McCollum over at Forgotten Weapons has a whole video series on modernizing the G3 rifle platform, and he's got all this crazy stuff on there, like the spur straight line like rifle stock. He had a custom modification where they changed the charging handle over to the other side actually just for him, so he could operate it left-handed. I don't really think all that is necessary. I mean, I have run this gun in shooting competition actually, because I'm a madman, and everyone else is running like super lightweight gamer ARs with like their 14.5 pin welded barrels, compensators, all this crazy crap, and their rifles don't move at all and they don't weigh anything. Meanwhile, I'm over here with my 15-pound Cold War rifle, but I've found, even operating it left-handed, I still find it pretty easy to get over the top of the gun and be able to lock it open, do my magazine change, hit it here on the top, and go back to work. So even for me, I have learned how to operate this left-handed. It's really not as difficult as some people would make it out to be. I don't necessarily think you need to go to the lengths that like Ian McCollum did with his rifle, but I just think it's cool at least that the option is even there, right? So it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Stag Arms with their left-handed ARs that have completely different like ejection bolts and all that kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool that even exists in the first place. So as far as like aftermarket stuff on that similar topic, I believe Magpul actually makes complete like trigger housing lowers like this that are all polymer now, and they have a much more improved grip than this. And I think there are other, there's got to be like other housings for these as well. I know you're not stuck with just this. And I have seen some inserts as well for the actual plastic grips here. I have multiple different grips for these now, but I decided to stick with this one because, I don't know, I just like it the most. But if you look at like your PSG ones and things like that, they have like the big wooden like ergo grip that has the big like rubber pad here on the bottom. I think that's a little much, frankly, for a rifle that I want to be a little bit more mobile with. Like, this is not necessarily like a bench gun for me. It definitely isn't. But yeah, there's a lot of aftermarket available for these things. As far as also muzzle device too, I believe this is like an original style kind of G3 muzzle device, flash hider, if you will. It works perfectly fine. A lot of my friends say that this rifle is obnoxiously loud to stand next to. I never really thought it was that bad. When I handed this rifle to my friends and I stood next to them, I didn't think it was that bad. I do like how punchy it sounds, though. This is a very, very satisfying rifle to shoot. It's very loud and punchy, but in all the right ways. Not like the, the ways that like your buddy next to you at the range has a VG6 Gamma on his 5.56 AR, with a 14.5-inch barrel, and it's just blowing your ears out every time it shoots. And you're just like, God, I hate being next to that thing. This is not like that, so in my opinion. As far as those shooting, so this rifle will also teach you a lot about fundamentals, okay? And what I mean by that is you need to be really knowledgeable about what you're doing with this gun. This is not a beginner's gun at all. And the reason why I say that is because the triggers are normally, they're meh. I wouldn't say they're terrible because I've gotten some pretty good shooting and decent groups out of this thing with just the stock trigger. However, it's not going to be anywhere close to like your nice Geisleys or LaRue triggers and things like that you're going to have in your nice bench ARs, right? It's not being anywhere close to that. It is serviceable though. The grip is not great either. I mean, it works, but I would definitely say I much prefer like AR-15 style grips for sure. The stock itself, so remember these kinds of stocks are usually what you're going to see on these kinds of rifles, not the clubfoots. So there is a important point with these rifles, and that's the hump right here. This hump right here is going to become either your best friend or your most hated enemy. And the reason why I say that is because when you want to get a good sight picture, either with your irons or whatever optic you have on there, you have to worry about eye relief with certain optics, right? And some people will say, like one of the old training techniques with ARs is put your nose to the charging handle. So you're putting your face way up in here like this, right? If you do that with a G3 pattern rifle, you're going to learn very quickly. So what happens is because of the operating system of this rifle, it is very violent. And so when all that bolt carrier and mass comes back here, it's going to throw you around quite a bit. It may not like hurt necessarily in your shoulder with recoil. It doesn't really with me. But the fact the rifle is just moving around so much and very quickly and very violently, that hump right here is going to smack you right here in your cheek and face. And yeah, it's a self-correcting error. Now, the reason why that's important is because, like I said, with eye relief, with certain optics, and even with this one here, you may need to get close like that so you can get the proper eye relief with your optic. So that is a bit of a downside with this rifle with mounting optics, because there's a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration with this. This is not like your regular flat top AR where you just put whatever scope you want on there and you're good to go. No. You have to be very conscious as well of how far up your scope goes, because of the cocking tube here needs to clear the charging handle. See how it sticks up like that and how close it is to the rail right there? So your scope cannot be too long, otherwise it will run into that. And of course you're gonna need a little bit more space than that because your hand has to go here. So if you make it too difficult to get your hand here while your scope is being too long, you're gonna run into some issues. As well, you have to clear the rear sight base as well, and you can kind of see how close this one is sitting here. You have to clear this as well. Now, this rear sight base is removable, of course. You can take that off. I prefer not to because I like to have irons on my rifles. And then, of course, you have to clear this and have proper eye relief in relation to the hump here on the back of the stock. So all of those things taken together makes mounting optics on this gun a little bit of a pain in the ass. Obviously, it was not really meant for that, and I know there's going to be some folks out there saying, well, why don't you get the claw mount? I don't like the claw mounts at all. One, because they're expensive. Two, they're a little janky. And three, it's really not a great solution, honestly, and it never really was for these kinds of rifles. The pick rail is definitely better, provided, of course, the welding job is done correctly, and the pick rail is, of course, in spec as it should be. So I have not had any problems with mine. The welding's held up fine. It's nice and centered. I've had no issues with mine at all whatsoever. And that has been my experience with pretty much every PTR product that I've handled and shot. Has been pretty awesome, actually. I haven't had any issues at all. I know there's some people out there who have, but frankly, that's just not been my experience. So, as far as optics, I have switched around a few optics on this gun in my time of owning it. A couple thousand rounds now through this gun. And I find I really like the prism optics for a number of reasons. One, that they're small, so they clear this pretty well. Two, the eye relief is okay, but it's definitely serviceable. And three, it keeps the weight down, because frankly, this rifle is not light at all. I think one time, like I said, I measured it, I think at like 15 pounds or something like that. Very heavy, very heavy. But considering the options out there for a semi-automatic 308 rifle, for the price that these come in, it's kind of hard. It's a competitive market, I would say, because you can go out there and get, you know, Palmetto State Armory AR10 for $700-800, something like that, maybe $600 on a sale, but it's kind of junky. It doesn't shoot very well. It doesn't have good accuracy like this one does. And it's an AR10. Like, AR10s are boring. Everyone has an AR something or other. ARs are boring. Not to say that they're bad, they're just boring. You know, you show up to a competition with an AR and everyone's going to be like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? You show up to competition with something like this, and you're going to get like one of three reactions. One's going to be, oh, cool, man, like that's a G3, cool. You're going to get some other guys going to be like, wow, you're running a G3, what a loser. And you probably will lose the match, but hey, you know. And the third reaction would be like, oh man, that's so cool. Like, mad props, man. In fact, the one match that I did show up with my buddy, we both showed up in German Flecktarn and our G3 rifles, or PTR 91 rifles. We actually got featured on Ian McCollum's Instagram page for that match, and he's like, mad respect to you guys. You know, you're running these crazy rifles out here. And he really liked the fact that I was running it left-handed too. He's like, dude. And he gave it to me personally, and he's just like, dude, I've never seen anyone else run like these PTR 91 G3 style rifles like as well or as fast as you left-handed like that. That's super impressive, and it made his heart happy to see someone else running one of these left-handed. So that was a really cool moment when I was still shooting competition and stuff. That was I'll remember that day forever. But anyway, so how does it shoot besides all the recoil and, you know, the hump getting your face hit by it and everything else? I will say I love the recoil impulse because it kind of feels like an AK in a way, where it's very violent. It will move you around. It doesn't hurt, at least to me, but it's, you know, this thing is moving. Like, it is going, you know, kerchunk, right? If you watch slow motion footage of this thing going off, it is moving, man. That's of course due to the operating system. The accuracy potential that I've gotten out of this has been actually really impressive. I've been very pleased with it. So the whole gamut of ammo that I've run through this thing. So I've run all kinds of surplus, and funny enough, this rifle really prefers the Hertenberger 308 surplus ammo from Austria, which I think is pretty fitting considering this is a German gun. You know, it likes that kind of stuff. I have repeatedly gotten either MOA or very like just barely sub MOA with Hertenberger surplus out of this gun. I've done it multiple times, and it's impressed me, definitely. Now, I have gotten also sub MOA groups, of course, with like your federal gold medal matches, your 168s, your 175s. It likes them both, but I think it prefers the 168s a little bit more than the 175s. It doesn't like 180s very much, all that much. But with regular like 147, 150 grain FMJ loads, soft points, whatever, you know, I'll pretty much get around the 1.5 to 2 MOA groups with this all day long, not even trying. So it is definitely mechanically accurate, and certainly enough for me. Considering the construction and the history and when this, you know, the engineering behind all this, I'm surprised, honestly, this thing can even get sub MOA at all with anything. So the fact that it gets that both with like super duper target match loads and you know, your old timey surplus ammo, like that's impressive to me. So whatever magic they did with the parts sourcing for this particular rifle, it just really likes that surplus stuff. So Of course, I will never run corrosive ammo out of this, just due to the blowback system and everything in here with the rollers and just how dirty this gun gets on the inside. God, that'd be a nightmare to clean and make sure I get all those corrosive elements out of the action here. So that's another point actually that reminds me. Cleaning this thing is an absolute bear. I am not going to take this thing apart. But you can look up some takedown videos on how to do that. So two things is the bolt takedown itself, so separating the actual bolt head from the bolt carrier, and then putting it all back together and trying to get those rollers set up just right and kind of rotating it. There's some videos out there by German Army veterans who will tell you how to do that correctly and how they did it in their time with the service. I've never been able to get it right. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but that thing has always been such a pain in my ass to put the bolt head back on the carrier properly so you can fit it back in the receiver. There's a certain way you got to do it. And then on the inside of the receiver as well, because of the nature of the system, there's so much crud and carbon and things that get built up in this receiver, like in all the rails, every single nook and cranny that you can imagine. The chamber area up here as well, it looks kind of like it's kind of square shaped, but then the bolt kind of fits in there. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's a little deep before the barrel actually starts itself, and trying to get in there with brushes and paper towels, cleaning solvents, all that stuff. No matter what I do, it's always coming out black, like all the time. It is just so filthy, right up in here, in the chamber. As far as rifling though, I mean, I can get the rifling clean, no problem. It's not a big deal, but just everything else on the inside of this upper receiver, not the lower, but the upper receiver, is just absolutely filthy. Bolt carrier as well is also absolutely filthy and weighs like 8 pounds. It's a huge chunk of metal. So yeah, maintenance on this is absolutely not my favorite thing to do. I do it rarely. I oil it when I need to, of course, but this gun will probably never be like super duper sparkly inspection clean ever again, just because it's just such a pain. But that being said, the reliability and durability of PTR 91s and G3 rifles in general is absolutely legendary. I think there's one guy who shot like maybe 10,000 rounds or something like that, just continuously through his Century. It was not a PTR, it was a Century build, so even cheaper quality than this. He went like, what, 10,000 something rounds through it with like cheap tool of steel, and it just kept going and going and going and going and going. So the reliability and durability of these things is, of course, just legendary. I have no complaints on that. The only weird issue that I had when I very first got this gun, the very first magazine I put through it, I had the most gnarly like triple feed I have ever seen in my life. I mean, there was just rounds just jammed every which way inside of the chamber there, and it was like, I'm like, I don't even know how this happens. So that was the one and only jam I've ever gotten with this gun. The other thing is too, of course, I have the video on the training bolt carrier with the plastic ammo. That's also really cool that you can do with this. I've had so much fun with that. Like, if I want to go out in the desert and shoot steel plates with my buddies at 25, 50 yards and like not ruin my steel with 308, just destroying it, I can run my training ammo through that, and it's a lot of fun. So I also have this really cool 30 round steel magazine here. This is supposed to be an Iranian contract, which is super cool to me because obviously, I love Persian things. I love Iranian-based things, especially when they're gun-related. So I picked this up off of Liberty Tree Collectors, and this is supposedly an Iranian contract G3 magazine, and they have 30 rounders. So I thought that was pretty cool. And this magazine has worked perfectly well, because usually Stendos have poor reputations, but this one has worked excellently. So. Yeah, but there's a whole bevy of magazines for this rifle out there. I mean, they're super cheap. They're all over the place. It just adds more to the awesomeness, I guess, of this rifle. So, yeah, I figured I'd just bring this one to you guys and show it off. And, I figured it was definitely due for a review. And I've had an absolute blast with this thing. It has performed so well. I would not hesitate to take this into combat any day of the week. Of course, it's a little heavy. It's a little outdated. But you know what? It works really damn well for what it is. So, super happy with these, and yeah, just thought I'd show you guys. So, I might do some more videos on this one later, just because I just feel like it. So, yeah, but that's all I gotta say for right now, and we'll see you next time.